Hello and welcome to Indian Standard Time. I'm Siddharth Varadarajan and my guest today is the Minister for Financial Services from Mauritius, Mr. Sudarshan Bhadain. Welcome to IST, welcome to Rajya Sabha TV.
Thank you very much.
Mauritius occupies a special place in the minds of many Indians. Of course, it's a land where upwards of several lakh people of Indian origin have settled. We share the same ocean. But more than that is the fact that this tiny country of perhaps 1.5 million people, if even that much, is the largest source of foreign investment in India. Perhaps 25 to 30% of foreign investment, FDI in India has come from companies that are officially registered in Mauritius. So Mauritius, in a way, occupies a very important role, a very prominent role in the Indian economy and in, I suppose, the government's plans to grow this economy in the years ahead using foreign investment as a route. Minister Bhadain, tell us something about how this small country came to occupy such a prominent role as a source of investment in India.
Well, Mauritius is also known as Chota Bharat. Our great-grandfathers come from India. 70% of the population of Mauritius are persons of Indian origin.
And this would be mainly from Bihar and Tamil Nadu, Andhra?
And also Eastern UP.
Eastern UP, okay.
Yes. My great-grandfather, my Varadarajan, came from Ayodhya.
Okay.
Small village, Faizabad,
yes,
which is not very far from Ayodhya. And one thing that we do have in common is, most people speak Hindi in Mauritius. Lots of people coming from Bihar do speak Bhojpuri as well. And all our values, principles, the culture that we have, it all comes from India. So that's why we are known as Chota Bharat.
Right.
And of course, the history of Mauritius parallels the history of India as well. After India got independence, of course, Mauritius got its independence as well. And most of the development which has taken place in Mauritius has been due to the relationship that we do have with India. And today, when we're talking about Mauritius being one of the largest provider of FDI in India, it is basically because of that special relationship. Double tax treaty was signed sometimes in the 1980s, 1983, I believe.
83, yes.
And the current Minister of Finance, who's with me on this mission in India right now, he was actually the Minister of Finance who signed that double tax agreement with India in the days of Sri Indira Gandhi.
So that's Ms. Lakshmi Narayan, is it?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
That's correct. Yes. And of course, we were predominantly initially an agricultural-based economy. We moved in the 1980s under the prime ministership of the current Prime Minister, Anirudh Jagannath, into an industrialized nation, textile industry. Lots of investors came from India to basically start up the textile industries in those days. And then, of course, we moved into the tourism sector as well. Yes. And we've had lots of hotels which basically have been built in Mauritius. 5-star hotels, including the Oberoi, which is still in Mauritius. And from the tourism sector, then the economy grew into a financial services based economy. And we've had other services industries as well, like the free port, and there's quite a lot of Indian involvement in that as well. And then, of course, the financial services sector, which nowadays people probably know us more for.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Mauritius, which has acquired somewhat of a reputation of being a financial haven or a country with, essentially a liberal tax regime which allows, foreign money from, different countries to be parked there. Despite Mauritius having that reputation, which many countries or some countries have, Liechtenstein or the BVI, British Virgin Islands and so on, the share of financial services in the total revenue of Mauritius isn't very high, is it?
Well, financial...
certainly not as high as for other countries that are considered tax havens or financial havens?
Well, I don't believe we are considered to be a tax haven, because
well, at least in India, that's the reputation.
When we look at all the international regulators and all the international players, Mauritius is distinctly on the white list of OECD and all the other countries. I mean, so we are not in that list of what is described as a tax haven.
Right.
Having said that, of course, there is a perception which has developed over the years. Now, that perception in my mind is certainly not correct. And why I do say that is because the number of cases which we've had in a Mauritian context, we are aware of these cases, and there are a few cases. But the majority of transactions which are taking place in Mauritius are clean transactions, and we are all aware of that. Then, of course, we've got our legislative framework, which is a robust legislative framework. Of course, we've enacted all the laws which needed to be passed for that purpose, whether it is the Financial Intelligence Anti-Money Laundering Act or all the different Financial Services Act and so on and so forth. The regulator, the Financial Services Commission, is regarded as one of the most serious regulator in that part of the world. We've had cases where the regulator in Mauritius have been commended for the actions, prompt actions that they have taken. And of course, we're looking to better the system. But like any other system, I mean, you will always have a few cases where people try to abuse the structure which is in place. And then it is a question of identification and detection. And we are also empowering our institutions to be able to do that very quickly. Now, having said that, in the last 10 years, we haven't had a lot which has been done in terms of communication, especially at international level. And I believe now is the time to get that right. There's a new government which has come into power in Mauritius since December 2014. And basically what we're looking into is basically to clean up the whole system.
And action has been taken against the previous Prime Minister, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. I mean, we do believe in the rule of law. We are a democratic state.
So the allegations there are of a financial nature?
Oh yes, there are certain cases which are being investigated by the police, which are of a financial nature. And of course, in accordance with the due process of law, I mean, when the police finish their investigation, we pass it on to the Director of Public Prosecution. And under the Constitution of Mauritius, is completely independent, and he decides whether to prosecute a case or not. So then basically, if cases go to court for prosecution, then we have a whole judiciary which is there, which is going to...
Is this the first time that somebody so senior has been investigated for a financial crime in Mauritius? Or is there a precedent for this?
I think in this particular case, it is the first case where you had these kind of allegations and issues being investigated. I think in one of the particular cases, there was a search which was conducted at the ex-Prime Minister's house, and there was a safe which was found there with about 220 million rupees in there. And the police are basically...
These are Mauritian rupees.
Mauritian rupees.
Yeah, so what would that be in dollars, roughly?
Probably, so it's at a rate of, at that time, about 30 rupees to the dollar. So we're talking about somewhat less than $10 million.
That's a lot, and that was in cash?
Yes.
That's a lot of cash.
In cash. And there was about 150 million rupees in US dollars.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So, but the system is working. I mean, that's one of the examples, but there are so many other examples. I mean, we've had an issue recently with an insurance company which was linked to a bank, and this also has been dealt with very quickly. On the financial services side, we've had a case, the Belvedere case, which has also been addressed very quickly. But over and above that, I mean, we're also passing new legislations. We're coming with a new Fraud Act, and also a Whistleblowing Act, which is very similar to the Whistleblowing Act, which is in India, and also the Public Interest Disclosure Act in the UK. And over and above that, in terms of structure, we're planning to put in place very quickly a Financial Crime Commission, which is basically going to overlook all the existing institutions that we have in a similar way as the National Crime Agency functions in the UK. But this is more in terms of structure, in terms of laws, and in terms of enforcement. But the whole culture is changing in Mauritius in the sense that when the new government came into place under the leadership of Sir Jagannath, I mean, we've won the elections on the basis that we are going to go and clean up the whole country and change methodologies, change systems, change legislations to be able to get the whole world to recognize Mauritius as a clean, transparent
So there is a
jurisdiction.
conscious political effort to rid Mauritius of this, you believe, an undeserved tag.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, you know, it's quite unfair to come and say that, you know, Mauritius is a place where dirty money is being laundered.
Right.
I myself I have practiced as a barrister at law for so many years and gone to court on so many cases, and I have a good visibility of what was happening because Mauritius is a very small place.
Now, Mr. Minister, we are having this conversation in Delhi at a time when the public at large has been served a reminder of the scandal related to monies associated with the Indian Premier League cricket tournament. There have been allegations of a Mauritius connection there. Is this something that your government is also looking into or has been asked to look into by the Indian side?
Well, no, not specifically. I mean, this is purely an internal matter for India, but I'm talking in terms of a larger picture.
Right.
I mean, we are basically portraying ourselves, putting all the actions in place for the world at large to see that Mauritius is a clean, transparent jurisdiction. And not only in terms of you know, laws and regulations and all these sort of ways of getting enforcement to be enhanced, but we are also looking at, you know, shifting the focus from Mauritius operating as a back office kind of operations with global business companies which are being set up. You used a word before for you said park funds, but in fact there are no funds being parked in Mauritius. It is a very dynamic process.
Right.
You have
it's rooted through funds. I mean, the funds are rooted through.
Yes. So basically, we are shifting that focus from being back office oriented to being more front office oriented. So what we want is basically more substance, and we're bringing more substance.
Now,
investment banks which are going to open up in Mauritius. We're linking the stock exchange of Mauritius with, for instance, the Joburg Stock Exchange. A memorandum of understanding will be signed very soon. On Friday, I'm meeting with representative of the NSE, and there are going to be discussions to link the stock exchange over here with the Mauritian Stock Exchange. We're also looking into using Mauritius as a gateway for Africa. So from the Indian perspective...
For Indian companies to use Mauritius as a gateway for Africa?
Okay. The focus has
taking
always...
advantage of your agreements with through the AU?
That's right. And the Southern African Development Community as well, SADC and COMESA, the Common and Eastern market for Africa, for Southern Africa. What we are seeing Mauritius as in the next 5-10 years is basically that gateway, that platform for African, for investment into Africa. So outward investment from India to be channeled through Mauritius using that gateway to go into places, not only in South Africa, countries like Namibia, Botswana, Mozambique, but also French-speaking countries because we are bilingual as well.
Now, a cynic will say that this is a win-win for Mauritius, that you are the hub for investment from the world into India, and you want to serve as the hub for Indian investment into Africa.
I see it as a win-win for Mauritius and India. And India as well. I mean, the smart cities projects in India, I mean, there has been a call for investment into India. So that would be inward investment, but we also have outward investment into Africa where Indian companies have a lot to offer. And basically using Mauritius would be the appropriate platform for that.
If we can focus now on the one big sticking point that has divided opinion between official opinion and public opinion between India and Mauritius, the double tax agreement that goes back to 1983. I mentioned at the start of this interview the anomaly of Mauritius being the largest source of FDI in India, and the perception of the understanding is that a lot of this money is third country money that is routed through Mauritius to take advantage of the rather favorable DTAA that India signed with Mauritius. Some of this money may in fact be Indian money round tripping. Can't ever prove that easily, but certainly the fact that such a huge volume of money is routed through Mauritius suggests that there are weaknesses in the structure of the DTAA, and I think the Indian government has over the years specifically been talking to your government about the fact that capital gains are not taxed in Mauritius for companies registered there, the fact that it's quite easy for third country companies to, at least in the past, set up, shell companies or dummy companies to route investments into India. To what extent have some of these concerns been addressed in recent years?
Yeah, well, before coming to that, let me just tell you one thing. I mean, when you're talking about inward investment into India, the capital gains tax, as a result of a treaty that we have, has benefited both economies. It has benefited investment into India, and it has benefited Mauritius as well in terms of job creation and in terms of getting the financial services sector in Mauritius to develop. Now, the problem is not that. The problem is not with the issue of capital gains, and I think that's perfectly fine. What the problem has been are basically a few cases where people have abused of the treaty. Now, here we're talking about round-tripping, for instance,
yes,
which has commonly been referred to. We are addressing that. And in fact, during the negotiations now, this is one of the issues that we are looking at very seriously, because we don't want Mauritius to be utilized as a jurisdiction to create that kind of abuse, especially when Mauritius and India share, not only the historical relationship, but also, I must say, a fantastic relationship. Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi, when he was in Mauritius recently in March, he also stated that India will never do anything to harm the financial services
but
sector.
He did flag our concerns on the DTAA, though, and said that we need to sort this
yes,
out.
And these concerns have to be addressed and will be addressed, and in fact are being addressed.
Right.
So round-tripping is one of the issues that we don't accept as well.
Okay.
And we will certainly do what we need to do, just like we are cleaning up, as I explained, in a Mauritian context, not only foreign transactions, but domestic issues as well. Okay. And we're coming up with these new structures, new methodologies, new ways of doing things.
What about a more stringent enforcement of residency requirements for foreign companies? The perception that third country investors were taking advantage of liberal regulations to set up effectively post-box companies, thereby evading the understanding in the India-Mauritius treaty that investors would have to be bona fide residents of Mauritius. Is there some change in this as well?
Absolutely. This is the whole issue of substance. And this is what the new government in Mauritius is bringing to the table now. And what we're saying is we're not only talking in terms of substance from what has been commonly referred to as round-tripping substance issues, but we're talking about jurisdictional substance. When I'm talking about the stock exchange of Mauritius linking up with the stock exchange of Joburg and also possibly India, that in itself brings a lot of substance. Funds which are going to be listed on the stock exchange in Mauritius will have different sort of listing requirements, and basically this in itself will bring more transparency. So not only in terms of bringing more substance, but like I said, we're changing the orientation as well. We want more front office activity. We are going to basically have more investment banks. We are going to go more into asset management, more into wealth management, and also fund management, as compared to having only a treaty-based approach, where you have companies which are setting up in Mauritius to, and basically using management companies in Mauritius to do all their secretarial sort of activities in terms of company formation, in terms of filing returns, and so on and so forth. We've had that for 10 years, but now we have to look at the 10 years ahead. And that's the vision. And we see ourselves as, that platform for bringing on investment on the African continent, which is huge. But there are other things we're doing. Like the Minister of Finance was in Dubai a few days ago, and the port is one of the areas we're looking at in Mauritius, and we are linking up with Dubai ports, which I believe also serves India, to enhance the whole free port sector in Mauritius. So that in itself is going to generate a lot of activity on the financial services side, but also in terms of the free port services that are offered in Mauritius.
I think while a lot of these initiatives would help address Indian concerns that have arisen from a sense that the DTAA provisions had been abused by companies in the past, would Mauritius be open to the Indian suggestion that the DTAA also be amended that perhaps, I think Article 13, which deals with capital gains tax or some other clauses, could be renegotiated? Is that something that is possible?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not about capital gains as such, but the negotiations which were taking place during the last 7 years, there have been negotiations, but nothing had been finalized. Right.
Nothing has moved.
And we do intend to finalize it.
And for that reason, the Indian side has been dragging its feet, as per your sense, on the comprehensive economic partnership agreement. So in a way, there's scope for win-win. If Mauritius addresses India's concerns on the double tax agreement, then the CEPA, which you want, could go ahead.
Absolutely. Look, Mauritius, we have a new government, and we have a new vision, a new way of looking at things. And the creation of my ministry, linking up financial services with good governance. Yeah. So you do have a ministry for the first time, which is dealing with a whole aspect of good governance.
Yeah, this is quite novel, actually. So
it is.
So financial services and good governance, as distinct from the Ministry of Finance, which then focuses purely on domestic management. Is that the division of labour?
Tax would normally fall under the Ministry of Finance.
All right.
But financial services, we're talking about the stock exchange, we're talking about the insurance industry, we're talking about the global business sector, and of course all the regulators like the Financial Services Commission, the Financial Intelligence Unit, and also things like the Competition Commission in Mauritius. Right. Now, the whole concept is to link up what we are doing in terms of good governance with the financial services sector to be able to portray us like a clean, transparent jurisdiction which is acting in line with all the good principles of good governance.
Right.
And at the end of the day, this is how we intend to market ourselves.
Right.
And we believe that people want to do good, clean business, and genuine investors are going to come to Mauritius, and they are going to use us as the platform that they need to be able to invest in Africa.
Mauritius
hence the outward investment side from India.
Mauritius was critical of the Indian government's decision to implement a general anti-avoidance rules framework, GAR, to deal with evasion of capital gains tax by companies. Do you continue to object to GAR, even though it's been put on hold over here, and I think now till 2017? Is that
no, it's not an issue anymore. Yeah, and when we finalize the treaty with India, which we are working on this week, and hopefully we are going to finalize probably by the end of this month, I believe, all these issues would be non-issues for us. And then the whole landscape is changing as well. For instance, next week, the Minister of Finance is signing the automatic exchange of information document with the OECD in Paris. Now, India is a signatory to that. Mauritius is a signatory to that as well. So the whole part of that debate on exchange of information is a non-issue now, because both India and Mauritius are will be signatories to that particular OECD treaty. Right. Now, similarly, you will have the whole issue of BEPS, which are coming in very soon, base erosion and profit shifting. And for us, a lot of people have been asking us, but isn't that going to affect the business which is being conducted in Mauritius? But we do see opportunity in all of that. And that goes in line with the vision that we have, basically to make Mauritius a clean, transparent jurisdiction. And we are open for business, good business.
We are almost out of time, but one of the highlights of Prime Minister Modi's visit to Mauritius was the $500 million line of credit that India announced. Any progress on how that's going to be utilized?
Yes, this is an issue which is currently being dealt with by my colleague, the Minister of Finance.
Yes.
And it is on the agenda, and discussions are taking place on that as well. Right. I'd rather not venture into that, because probably he will have an announcement to make afterwards.
All right, so we look forward to at least some immediate good news on the bilateral front, even if the more contentious issues get resolved slowly but surely over the next couple of years.
Yeah. One of the other issues that we've asked during this mission is in terms of a liberalization, in terms of a remittance scheme, which is then Mauritius. For some reason, Mauritius is listed as one of the countries where you have a restriction when you send $250,000 or less. You need to have approval of a Federal Reserve Bank of India. So we've asked for Mauritius not to be on that list, so that this can also enhance business between Mauritius and India.
And the Indian side is receptive to that request?
Very receptive, very receptive.
Right. Well, on that note, Mr. Sudarshan Bhadain, thank you very much for joining us on Indian Standard Time and Rajya Sabha TV.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. And do keep watching Rajya Sabha TV. We'll be back again next week with another episode of Indian Standard Time. another guest. Thank you.